Well, it looks like Iranian reformers will win all 30 parliamentary seats contested in Iran's capital of Tehran. Partial results show hardliners have been handily defeated in the first elections held since last year's controversial nuclear deal. And moderates are also making a strong showing in many districts outside the capital as well. Likely no party, though, will get a majority. Well, for a closer look at what all this means, we are turning to Kamran Bokhari. He is with the University of Ottawa Security and Policy Institute, as well as a fellow with George Washington University. Kamran, thank you for joining us. As we look at these results coming in from Iran, what is your immediate reaction? What does this mean?
Well, it means that there is more vibrancy amongst those who I would call the Iranian left and the centrist politicians. Obviously, they have more popular appeal. It also shows that there's only, a certain extent to which the establishment, the clerical and security establishment, can rig or engineer the elections. So they do have the Guardian Council that vets candidates, but despite their harsh vetting and disqualification of a lot of what would be called dissident politicians, this is a pretty good showing on the part of the reformists and the pragmatic conservatives.
Now, as we said in the introduction, we're essentially looking at Tehran here, the reformers doing well, some areas outside Tehran. But is this a reform movement within the capital itself? Are we seeing a groundswell in other parts of the country as well?
It is. I mean, but mind you that it's not sort of a sweep. It's still what, if I had to put a number on it, we've had results from 206 constituencies. There are 290 seats total. So we're looking at a 60-40. So 60 right of center candidates and, probably like roughly 40 centrist and left of center candidates.
And what about the broader scope of the political direction that the country is taking right now? Are we going to see more and more reforms being made as a result of this?
It's going to be very slow. This is a very complicated political system. It's a hybrid between Western parliamentary democracy and Shia Islamist theocracy. And so there are elections, but then there are other institutions as well that are sort of dominated by the clerics. So any reform that President Rouhani and his camp are going to embark upon, particularly on the social level, they're going to have to come very slowly because there is a lot of pushback.
Well, when you talk about reform on the social level, what do you think the first reforms are? What will we be seeing in the few years ahead?
I think most immediately, because of the respite from sanctions, we're going to see economic reforms. Now, obviously, when you bring in economic reforms, you can't sort of say, okay, we're just going to focus on the economy and make that better. There is a spillover into the social sphere. Mores change, the way you do business changes, and that's the fear of those who are, we would call the hardliners, I would call the ultra-conservatives, who think that contact with the outside world will undermine their position.
Mm-hmm. And do you think we'll see a reaction then from that side?
We're already seeing a reaction. I mean, this has been a very, very bitter campaign. So on the right, the Iranian right has been saying about its opponents that they are agents of infiltration by the West. And so that was the attack from the right. From the left, they've been calling their opponents extremists. So it's been an infiltration versus extremism, if you will, debate pre-election. This is going to intensify because we're now moving to a parliament that is less dominated by the conservatives, as well as the assembly of experts, which chooses, elects the supreme leader, which this new assembly may very well end up doing because the current supreme leader is in an advanced age and he may not live through the full term of the assembly.
Well, this does come after the nuclear deal that Iran wrote last year or signed last year. It also comes as sanctions are being lifted against Iran. What does this all mean for Canada as we look at Canadian-Iranian relations? Of course, they've been strained over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that when the United States and our Western allies were secretly negotiating with the Iranians on the nuclear deal, we were ironically moving in the opposite direction under the Harper administration. We snapped ties. And now, when there's an opportunity to do business, the Europeans are lining up ahead of us. Brazil has gotten a contract for 50 aircraft. If we had relations, maybe Bombardier could have made some money over here. So I think that, if we can call the sanctions respite a party, we're late to that party as a country to make money.
Kamran, thank you very much for your insight. And that is the University of Ottawa's Kamran Bokhari joining us right here in studio. Thank you for that.